to this evening's meeting of the Finance Committee. Hope everybody's doing okay. We had a very long time between meetings this time. Almost a full 24 hours, almost a full 22 hours. Assume everybody got a copy of the emails that I sent around with the changes made. I would suggest that the first thing we do is talk about changes in Bob, a couple paragraphs that Bob wrote up, and then I edited and the changes that I made, and get those straightened out, first of all. I did not get a chance to talk to Chris today. It was in I called. So there's a double check there that has to go on to do yet. But if we look at the changes to the changes I made to the section that Bob wrote up. The 2 pages that look like that. Good evening, Jen.
Which one are you talking about? One or the other one?
This is you sent me one, and I sent another one back and sent it to everybody, and then
But this is with the or in it. The top part and the bottom part.
the top part. It's actually, there's both parts.
Yeah, both
So-
parts.
So so they're both there that we can talk about. One thing that I did, and again, it was just kind of a double check on the figures. The first budget that Chris sent out to us, the recap sheet from that had the figure on it for required net school spending that matches up what's on the DESE website. And that's the 11,598,537 figure. So I suggest that we use that one because that's the one's on the website. Some Bob has used in his calculations and the one that I've never used in my calculations. So that would be, I think, our starting point for.
Can I inject something?
Sure.
When I left here last night, I looked up whether or not transportation was a net school spending item or not, and it is not.
Okay.
Some forms of transportation are reimbursable, but it has nothing to do with net school spending. So that's
why it's shown as a separate.
Yes.
Yeah, move that out. But on the latest version of the recap sheet, the transportation is in there. I noticed the 109 is what's in there.
the most recent one that Chris put out. He added the
1.9.
190,000 to the minimum contribution
Yeah.
figure.
Yes.
Yeah.
And ended up with then the same
Number.
excess.
Yeah. So we took it out of the transportation and moved it on. Cause that is 190, yes.
No, he moved it up, but he moved it up twice. He moved it up to, and included it as part of minimum contribution, which he shouldn't have. And then he added it into the operating budget figure.
Okay.
As if we were in fact spending that part of the, so now we understand at least where all the figures came from.
Yeah.
And we're all back in balance except for the $7 difference between.
No, that's the schools, that's what he
Well,
told the schools.
that's right, so I took that out of one of the figures, and just moved that over, so, the school said they said they'd be happy to pick up the $7. So, the top paragraph, cost attributable to Granby schools for fiscal year 27 is $14,511,278. And then I did a little editing to try to make it more clear that that not only did that include the capital items, but it also included the retired teachers' health insurance, which we pay for, but nobody gets to vote on. It's deducted automatically from the state aid on the cherry sheet. And this then brings us back to, that I wanna stick with this, 890,000 figure from, general revenue, because we use it a couple of times. That's in excess of required minimum contribution. That all balances out the required minimum contribution back to where it was in the original recap sheet for us. And it matches up to the figures on page. And then that comes in on the second page, where I've got kind of the balancing items of the things that add up. So that we start with the net school spending required and add in the reduced transportation amount, which is the $190,000. And then add in the $190,000 to the $700,000 additional from the town, add in the capital and the entire teacher's health insurance to get to the figure that's the first one that's quoted at the top of the previous page. And then there are three more figures, which are mentioned on the other page, are the $521,000 for Pathfinder, $114,000 for Smithville, and the $795,000 for the schools, for the school building. And that comes out to the total then, that is given in, now the fourth paragraph, up at the top. Now, and Bob, I didn't check the percentages, I don't think it would drop by very much, because you could.
I got 55%
Take
in
a look at
the
that.
last sentence there. Not 56.
55 even or 55 for? No. That's not much.
No, Bob, you got the figures that you compare that to, so. Does it sound right to you, what?
There's only 1% increase in that, it's 2.5, right?
Right.
And that's the figure, because we're starting with the same figure that you started with, except for the $7.
And it compares with the 14, one something from a year ago.
Yeah. So that one, I know that one won't change. Question is whether or not, there's anything, it's gonna be very small if there is, but it might not be anything at all.
And the percent in the last sentence should be 55.2.
Where?
Here, where it says 56.4.
Well, we gotta be, we gotta be in agreement on what the total town expenditures are.
Right.
And again, there are the things that are on the cherry sheet, which are expenditures. And I don't know if you, have you included that in?
Here's what I did, which is what you did, last year. And, the only part that I did not understand at all was, the last pieces, which seem to be adjustments to the fire department and health insurance, which I didn't understand what those were or where they would come from. So it's really just, you had sent us those scratch sheets, John, so it's basically putting in all the 27, making all the 27 numbers in there. So it should be, and it all balances back to the recap sheet.
Which is the number on here that would be the equivalent of the 56.4?
Here, that number, the 5517.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Well, you got 5517, I've got, oh, all right, that's right, 56. The number that I used using that different number and coming out with numbers that were way off.
So here, you know, that it looks like the difference is the health insurance, the retired teachers' health insurance, doesn't it, isn't that like $690 or something? Yeah. It is
This number is
612.
28,280. All right,
Right.
600 and
Right,
613, yeah, all right, that's, maybe it's 615. But when I calculated it, the teacher's health insurance was not involved.
right, I just.
Not for that, because we were comparing this, right, wrong, or indifferent, we were dividing the 15, whatever it is, 942.
$15,940 with a total of,
It's
Kind of
the total school
On this side, yeah.
as a percent of that particular number. And the number that you're using is different than my number by the amount of the retired teacher's health insurance.
Right, that's the difference.
This number here would not have it in it. Because it's a deduction way up here.
Right, I was just tracking to get the numbers that would correspond to the way it was written last year.
It corresponds doing exactly the same thing a year ago without the teacher's health insurance to the numbers that John had a year ago.
yeah, the teacher's health insurance, again, it's an odd thing, it's listed on the recap sheet as a decrease in income, because it comes right off the top of the state aid. But, well, I mean, it's really an expenditure. It's really an expenditure.
So that's the difference, I mean, whatever, like it's just a matter of how we wanna display it. We know what it is anyway, so.
Let me take a look at that and double check on what we think the total budget is, which would include retired teachers' health insurance, because it's on the budget sheets.
When I calculated and came out with the same number that you had calculated a year ago. The reason I say that is because I was using the net down the bottom and I'm coming out with something entirely different. So then I went back and said, oh, maybe it's this number that was being used. So the number that was used a year ago was the number in the report.
So see, though in this overview, Bob, last year it said 27.5 million, which has that, oh no, it doesn't, right, appropriation plus. Yeah, see, it has the retired teacher's health insurance in it.
What does? This number, yes, this number does. This number does not.
This number here, this 27,516? I think it does. Mhm.
On your sheet it does, but not on my sheet.
This was John's sheet originally, the 26 numbers.
I don't know where,
Yeah, he had it as, he called it a scratch sheet.
oh, all right, on the scratch sheet. I never looked at the scratch sheet. So then what we can say is that what John did a year ago, the report is different than what he put on the scratch sheet.
That could have been for a different purpose, I just don't remember.
Well, you know what? No one's gonna know.
We don't even know ourselves.
So true.
You're right about
Let me
that.
take a look again, at some of the figures. There are different figures which are used for different purposes.
That's what makes it
So,
confusing.
it's always funny, I used to get back when the newspapers had reporters, I would get calls from reporters about what the budget was. And so, I would give them a figure that wouldn't really match what we were doing at town meeting, because it had a lot of stuff in it that's, again, not part of what is the official budget, but is the official budget. So, keep track of these different sets of figures, and calculate it in different ways, to try to get an honest sense of, and give the context of how much we were spending. Let me double check on those. It's an easy adjustment to. I'm gonna talk about Smith Oak.
I do have one question.
Yeah.
Did the school send out a revised budget after?
I don't know, didn't send me a copy. I don't know, after the meeting last night, I don't know if it, And I can't imagine it didn't approve, it was on that meeting.
But they should send us, and last year they did not.
The finalized budget, they didn't. Isn't that a problem?
Our number,
Well, they're,
well, the numbers didn't change on the,
Well, if the numbers don't change, that's one thing, but
Yeah,
here
if they voted on what we had on that,
so, and that's my understanding is what Chris gave us as a final is what they voted on.
yeah, okay.
Oh.
That's what it's
when
supposed to
you
be.
say your understanding,
What, based on yesterday's conversation, the way that Chris had redone the math on,
The second one.
that's not what I mean. When you said.
my
Do- do-
understanding yesterday.
Understanding from us or understanding from someone?
No,
who would
from
have-
here,
Oh,
our
okay.
meeting yesterday.
Yeah.
My understanding was that what we had on Chris's budget was what they're supposed to be voting on if South Hadley had agreed.
Accepted the
So,
transportation change.
and it sounded like South Hadley agreed to that, so that budget didn't change. So we go with what Chris had. But I was just wondering if they had a change.
But they sent that email that said that they got the contract from.
Correct, I have that.
Yeah.
You know, right up to the very last minute, this is such an unusual year.
Yeah.
It's just,
Really good.
nothing has worked as smoothly as it has for the previous 15 years, roughly.
Oh, no, it's
It's-
really
this
confusing
is-
for me.
Yeah, and it's, to me, I just find this extremely unacceptable. I do. It's hard.
That's a nice way to put it.
There's another issue which we're not gonna bring up because there's really no time to bring it up. An argument can be made that, the kids going to Smith Oak are part of Granby school system. And it's not because it's so much unlike Pathfinder, we belong to Pathfinder. We're a participant in the ownership, if you will, of Pathfinder. And so kids go there, there's a whole different arrangement, different financial arrangement, state and everything else. But,
Smith is not the
the
same.
kids going to Smith Oak are different. They're basically like it's part of the Granby school system with a special program. There's a curriculum for that in Smith Oak. So there's an argument to be made that should be part of what what it costs us to educate kids, and that the cost of that should be paid for separately, should be part of the net school spending. Contribution in kind by the state, by the town for the school budget. It hasn't been passed, but it's only been recently we've been. So, this is no time this late in the season to bring any of that up, but it could be something that we wanna have some kind of official conversation about next year with the town administrator, the school lawyer and everybody else.
That's carving out Smith students as a
Whether it should be
separate.
carved out or whether it should be really part of the whole educational
numbers are sent in by the school department, they are supposed to send in any out-of-state tuition to any out-of-district tuition that they pay. And that's Smith Vocational. I don't think there's any question whatsoever but that it is a town expense, the same as if the kids are educated here in town. The transportation is paid out of the transportation account, which is under the control of the schools, so.
Program and what Pathfinder is, that they're not the same.
Mm-mm.
That's what I'm trying to understand,
Yes, they're not- they're
why are kids going to Smith when we have Pathfinder?
If a kid wants to go to vocational education and it isn't offered by a vocational school that you're part of the district, then you have to pay for them.
You mean
No,
like
I
a
understand.
certain, like an
Program.
HVAC or something?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
if Pathfinder does not offer
A certain
the
program.
certain program in
Smith
Smith
does.
does, they're both vocational schools. They appeal to say this is where the student wants to go because Pathfinder does not offer this program.
Well, that to me is a reason versus I just want to go to Smith. That's
Yeah.
the problem
No,
I
Yeah.
have.
No.
Not, you
There's-
can't go to Smith
They can't do
if
that.
Pathfinder
Well, that's what I'm trying to
Yeah.
understand.
So
That's what I'm trying
if
to
the
understand.
student wants to go to a vocational school, our district is
It's
part of the
Pathfinder.
regional, the Pathfinder, so there's like 9 surrounding communities
Yep.
that go to Pathfinder.
But if Pathfinder doesn't have what I'm looking for,
Correct, then
but
they,
Smith does,
then they put in an appeal to go to
Okay.
Smith because they offer the program they're looking for.
And I think that's up to the school superintendent to determine that.
I'm not, well, the superintendent has to sign off on it, but I don't think there's any choice.
No,
As
if,
long as the facts are
if the
met.
program
Yes.
is there,
yeah,
But maybe she has to judge that. I think.
Well, if they
Somebody
say
comes through and says, I wanna go here because they have
criminal justice or
this,
something,
yeah,
then
and
yes,
they have to check to see if
check, make sure that it
Pathfinder
isn't
doesn't-
offered at Pathfinder
correct.
and that it
Yeah.
is offered where they say they're going, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think you'd be able to go if you said, well, Smithville has a vocational program to teach you how to fix Rolls Royces, and Pathfinder doesn't. I doubt that would be a legitimate reason, but who knows?
You both have auto repair. That's what it's called.
Is there, so without bringing that up as the issue, is there any reason to include some of this stuff in the basic, statement?
No, because all I did was just add in
Yeah,
the words of Smith and
putting it up above.
added the totals in and
If I'm
changed the
understanding,
percentages.
yeah, what you're saying, that's the difference in the numbers too. The
Yeah.
numbers, Smith is
It's-
included in the second, it's not included in the first. I just want to be able to understand.
They're included at different places.
Well, your totals are different, that's why I was trying to understand why the totals are different.
But the bottom total doesn't change.
Ah, you're right. I didn't get that far. I was just looking at the bold.
That might have answered your question.
You did.
Oh, yeah, I put that in bold to point out that I had changed it from Bob's second version, from the second paragraph. Okay, we'll go with this on the section on,
I have the overview. I have the overview.
okay,
Basically, we're given an opinion, right? We might wanna change the format a little bit, just so
Okay,
it
I was gonna
says
say-
opinion.
Yeah, it's, we can't give an opinion as to what we think the numbers are.
No. It's just after reviewing the budget, it's just the format, just to let people know that after what we reviewed, what was given to us, I want them to know that we're not in charge of this. That we're just reviewing it and, reporting the numbers that we see. I didn't really change anything from what we had last year, but I was just thinking, I was doing this morning and then few minutes that I had when I got home.
So does this reflect what you're suggesting, or
No,
is
this
this
is just
the
reflecting,
respond?
yeah,
Yeah.
but I was just looking at some formats.
Okay, we had done, just for which I think for almost everything is the same as what the numbers are all the same, pretty much.
Okay, what did you change?
Just the increase in, I was just making a comment of, like, if we can change the format, I just left it the same as last year. But I just got to thinking this morning when I was doing this.
Do you have a specific idea?
I have a format, I can send it. I was trying to get it,
Yeah,
but I didn't have enough time when I got home.
yeah, that's
It
all right.
ran out of time.
But we've got until, I have a meeting set for next Tuesday.
Yep,
And next Thursday.
okay,
So we can do a final touch up and put
Okay.
in changes to format.
Yeah.
Sure. I don't remember when the format, it may have even been there before I was on the finance committee.
Yeah.
Of the basic kind of stuff. Okay, I think this is fine.
yep, okay, yeah, cause I just basically went, it's just a little, it's basic, but just a little more wording of whose responsibility the budget is. Cause it's technically not our responsibility, we're just reviewing what is given to us, making sure it's a balanced budget.
Well, no, the budget is our responsibility.
In the sense, but we didn't come up with the numbers, we're just saying that we looked and reviewed.
No, that's not the way I look at it. I think because the process is the same, except that whereas we used to do the initial interviews with all the department heads, the town administrator does that instead of us. But then we have to really kind of verify as to what's
Mhm.
going on within the
Yeah.
departments.
Yes, because we should question if we see something that looks abnormal. We should question it.
Abnormal, or just to get an understanding of what's going
Mhm.
on, what's being planned.
Yeah.
But at any rate, that doesn't really affect how we report on what the state
Yeah.
contributions are.
Yep.
That's, nobody gets, we hope our state representatives get to sit in one of those conversations, but that's about as far as close as we can get to it.
That should be fine.
One thing doesn't quite make sense to me. You've got that the total state aid increases by 1.46. And then you got both, that for schools and that for
There,
general government are both greater than that. some other somebody else who's getting less, it's gotta be, I don't think it can be that big.
Not-
The way this is written, all of the increases are bigger than 1.46%. Some of the increase is 1.8% higher, some of it's 2.5% higher, and some of it's 70% higher.
Yeah, I think that's just a glitch, because I got 1.9% higher on the total. Here, where it says 1.46, I got 1.9.
For the same numbers,
Just,
Yeah, I
Yeah.
have it again.
yeah,
not for the same
Well,
numbers.
that would seem right,
yeah,
because
for the same numbers.
Yeah,
the school portion is the larger chunk of the money.
Yes.
It is.
And that number is closer to the school number than
Well,
the 2.5.
That's true, yeah,
so,
that's true. Take a look at your formulas.
Everything's been in a rush, and, so,
but our numbers are about the same.
yeah, our numbers are about the same, it was just that percent. The numbers are the same, it was just the percent that I had different.
The, most all the money we get from the state is for school stuff.
Yeah.
And so, if you got a total of 7 million increase, the state aid for schools, including construction, has gotta be much bigger, because the
It's
three
just
figures.
a typo, John, it should be 578.
Yeah.
5, 7, 2, 8.
Yeah, I just,
Ah,
but the
ah.
percentages are correct.
5, 7, 2.
Yeah, so that should be a five.
But in the first paragraph, the percent
The-
should be 1.9.
Yeah, because if the school aid is 1.8% higher, and then the portion for the general government is 2.5% higher, but that's only, what, 30% of what it is, so the weighting is always towards the school, so it's gonna be more close to the school, maybe a little higher than 1.9, but.
It's at 5 a.m. Like,
It would be nice if you didn't have to work, Jen.
yes. Have a little more time.
Your whole life would be easier.
change in format, which we can do.
Mhm.
The three figures that are on this page do not add up to the total
No,
towns, because there's more stuff. And, and we don't wanna go into all the rest of the stuff, because there's a lot of little pieces, and there's
Right.
some pieces which are come and offset on by other things, so that, but we could, maybe just change the wording a little bit, so that after the first paragraph, we could say that the total state aid includes these amounts, includes these features, include these directed funds, and sort of, and then have the state aid for schools and the state aid for general government in chapter 90, the three largest pieces.
so the only question I had was, is when I looked at state aid, that chapter 90 was,
Do you have the green book that's handed out at the meeting?
I do.
I just thought of something else. There's only so much room on that first page. And I think we may have cut down this first thing, so that and the big overview introduction.
the
It's right in the very
schools,
front, it's in the very front.
Yeah.
so the schools include the chapter 70 charter and lunch. And then the other.
Yeah, here's why never mind, I take it back. Here's what we have. The very beginning of this has this format, which has always been used, so we only have this much space.
Right.
And so this much space doesn't allow for much variation in what we say on the first page.
Right,
Or how we say it. It's gotta fit within this.
Yeah.
You can't change format and point size and all that other jazz. I don't blame you. It is what it is.
I don't have it, that's not our software. That's
Yeah.
the town administrator software. Forgot about that.
that's
We have a
That's a
space
good point to
research in the
remember.
very first
Yeah.
place.
And we can't let it scroll to the next sheet.
Yeah.
cause this is
Or could we-
information, but
if
it's
we
not
added in
enough.
2 more pages.
I'm just like
Yeah.
looking at this going.
They give you so much room that you gotta
Yeah,
fit it
I think it
with
moves
gotta
on,
add both
I think
sides
this
of
is
it.
sort of a continuation,
So-
this paragraph that says the budget, because, yeah, I mean, it's sort of out of order in a lot of ways, but if you keep going, it makes more sense, cause the next paragraph is all about the budget, Next section is all about the budget.
Okay, are we all set on the first piece? Gonna take a look at, and then get it to me, if you have a digital copy, so I can change it in the same.
Yep. Yeah,
Font and everything else like that.
yeah. Yeah, I can send this to you. I don't have internet
Yeah.
when I get home. I'll send this. I think I have it in a Word document.
Okay, we then have,
You have this
the
piece
piece
here.
for the future.
That's, he has the one I have.
Oh, no, not the overview, but the budget.
I thought I
Dan,
printed
did you have any success in putting, figures together?
I did them, and maybe Jen did too.
No, I didn't have time.
Okay.
So, this is-
Thank you.
it's that 612 again, I think.
Yeah, this is,
Causing the differential,
this is the one I couldn't figure out what the numbers were.
right,
You got the,
so,
you got the, amount for budgeted for capital equipment funded from borrowing. Shouldn't that be 406,559?
I got it right out of the, detail sheets, the notes, let's see.
It's in this section of the notes.
Yeah, and that's where I got it, there were two different, let's see. See if I can get it again.
I think the borrowing amount is 432,211. If you look at the notes page,
Which page?
section,
Section.
first page is about section 4.
Yeah,
It's actually section 3 and 4 and 5. But the borrowing column is really the $25,000 for the schools and $406,000 for the general government, adding up to the bottom sum of 432,211. Is that right?
We, let me see. At the bottom, it
Yeah.
is,
432,211, right. So what are you saying then?
Okay.
That's what I have, right?
No, that's what you got. It's 432,211. That's
Yep.
the one that's at the
Right.
bottom of the.
Right.
yep, it's right here,
Right.
I have it.
Marianne, can you show me or where to look for the general government, the operating expenses? Where did you find that?
Okay, so you look at the recap, and then we have to look for the note, and it tells us, so, general government budget is note 12.
So it's 13, I know.
I got 9, 8, 10, because you have to make adjustments. Here, wow, this is another one of these computed numbers. Just gonna walk by, sorry.
So you do your own homework. Is this the one you
This
passed
is-
out earlier?
Yeah, so,
Oh, it is.
what John had supplied it as a scratch sheet, so that
Right,
we
right.
could go back and follow in prior years.
The map.
So I added, the current year, I added this column, right?
Mhm.
And then filled in all the numbers from all the detailed worksheets that we had. So, you come down to this line that says general government operating
Right,
expenses.
Right.
And, so,
It's right there.
yeah. The general government operating expenses, right, that's
Yeah, it's
where
a
the
little-
9A, it's coming from there, cause it's
Right.
taking out in-kind and school loan. And,
Okay, that's helpful. But I guess the question is, how am I supposed to know that?
you'd have to track through what was done the prior year. So, which is what I did, so see, he gave us this sheet up to 2026.
Right.
And then he has labels that show us what's
Mhm.
going on, so he started with the overall, took out the in-kind, that's the
Right,
school
right.
in-kind. Took out the East Middle School loan and ended up
With an
with that
operating.
number.
Mhm.
So it's just you know, if you came
You
from a
follow-
job
you
where
follow
you
the
follow,
bread-
you
you
follow
follow
the
the
numbers,
breadcrumbs that were done
yeah,
from last
that's
time.
it, that's exactly it. So,
Where did you get the, enterprise funds? Infrastructure reserves?
off of the note. Ambulance trash, pickup and sewers, so 1726.
That's the total.
Right. And yes, that's the
But-
total.
But this comes from the tax levy.
Right, but we're talking about the total budget, right? Doesn't matter where it comes from, right? It's not borrowing or. Yeah, and I think it meant that's how we showed it in the worksheet.
Um.
So I think.
I don't think. I think that's,
You're a good investigator, Marianne.
I think that's not from the enterprise fund.
Well, okay, the amount.
Because
budgeted-
if you look at, if you look in, you can cross-reference the,
Okay, yeah.
the page that has the,
Yeah.
the funds on it, has the three, stabilization funds and the other funds, is it the fund for solid waste? That's the enterprise, that's the trash fund, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's not $500,000 in there. And then, I don't think there could be, because we don't collect that much.
I don't.
Think what's in there, we collect from
Well,
the
why are you looking at,
override.
why are you looking at sources at all right now, John? Isn't this just talking about the total, the amounts budgeted?
No,
Yeah, the amounts budgeted are, right?
Let me see your report. That way I can look at last year's report,
All else fails, see what we said
rather
last
than
year.
bringing a piece of paper.
Well, yeah, that's true.
I didn't bring it.
Oh.
Pretty much tracked too, I went back and tracked the numbers through the prior
Yep.
year.
it's the wording here. The amounts budgeted for general government are, 9.8 million general government operating expenses, 3.3 million for the, in-kind expenses. And then, we've got, 1,726,000 from the enterprise
Four.
funds.
Oh, it should say 4.
Well, previously it said from, I got caught on that preposition also.
Mhm.
Is it for or from?
The, about the amount that comes out of those funds.
So from is correct.
Yeah, but I don't think, but we don't get $600,000 out of that fund. I don't think.
Where are you where are you
We're
We're paying for
seeing
trash,
600?
we're paying for trash from taxes.
And with trash and sewer.
Where are you seeing
You can't convince me that that's what you're trying to say, even though it was you trying to say it.
So,
I mean, the number that's in there for last year is within a couple of bucks.
yeah,
The figure that shows on our summary sheet for last year, so
Right,
you're being consistent.
right, right.
Now, whether that's what was meant or not is a different story. You're only talking about budgeted for those accounts, you're not talking about what the source of paying for them is.
correct.
When you get,
Right. So it should say for and not from, maybe, right? Cause it's budgeted for.
when you get to what comes out of the bottom line, or the bottom part of this recap sheet lists a deduction for the enterprise funds, which is where it shows.
Yeah. I think it should say for, right, from, not from, maybe that's the whole conclusion.
Probably, I mean,
Yeah.
if
just
it were
another
saying
track.
from, it would have to be, you were reducing some number, but there's no number here being reduced.
Yeah, for.
So it's four.
Because
It's going in.
the 9 million is,
That's for your operating
well,
expenses.
it's the 9 plus the 33, the 3 million. And if you look at basically what we voted for the general government budget,
Yeah, this is for these funds, I mean, in the sense that
It's for.
when money is paid for the sewers, it's paid out of the sewer fund. Money goes into the sewer fund from the collections from people, and the money comes out of the sewer fund and spent for the sewers. So that for the sewer fund piece, for example, there's expense of $337,795. And all of that comes out of the enterprise fund. So people pay into the enterprise, but people pay into the enterprise fund. For the municipal solid waste program, we don't pay into that except for our taxes.
no, that's not quite.
And then taxes
that's
are
not
really
quite
over the
right.
fund. Well, the money, if the money is paid out of the sewer, out of the solid waste enterprise fund, how does money get in there?
We sell blue bags.
Mm-hmm.
Blue bags.
Yeah, but we
Yep.
don't sell 600.
Oh, no,
$70,000.
No question about it, I was just saying,
Yeah, I know your
there
blue
is
bags.
revenue going
That's
in.
another revenue
Yeah.
stream.
There is revenue, it's not
It's a
a
stream.
major item,
No, it's a
Right,
stream.
so there's $110,000 that comes out of that fund, out of this municipal solid waste enterprise fund.
Forward.
For paying $670,000 trash bill.
Right.
And so the rest of it comes from taxes.
yeah. Well, I mean, did you mention, a little bit of it comes from the revenue, well.
Yeah, it's $110,000.
It probably isn't, it may very well be just the 110 comes out of there to subsidize the cost of trash, and whatever revenue goes in stays in there and becomes the source for the following year.
Yeah, and at the end of the previous year, the balance in the enterprise fund was, in the solid waste enterprise fund was $109,000, roughly $110,000. So we basically cleaned it out for this year, and then the rest has to be paid by tax. So, so this money is not coming out of these funds. They're basically for those funds.
For those funds, right. So we just need to change the word.
Just change preposition.
Yeah, because that was in there from last year.
Oh, all right.
And I don't know, see, in John's scratch sheet thing, he had last year some kind of adjustments that this is apparently is a health insurance adjustment, and this is,
But I can't think of any.
yeah, I don't know what it was for.
Maybe we were just doing it to make it confusing for the following year.
Could be, it was certainly confused me, that's why I put a question mark.
Okay, I'll go back and, get you the answer to that.
Cause you had made some kind of an adjustment, John, and I didn't know what it was.
I'll have to look through the detailed budgets and
Yeah,
see what's on there.
The fire department, could imagine that it occurred because we split the costs up between there and the ambulance enterprise fund, so there is some swapping around.
Yeah.
But I can't think of what it would be on the health insurance.
But it would it,
We don't, one thing the fire department and the ambulance department is the same group of people.
Yeah,
But it's split out that way because
for budgets.
it's stuff, well, it's more than that, it's that, the ambulance collects money. Because it costs money going either Medicare or individuals or insurance companies, and it collects money, so it goes into the ambulance funds. And then that funds part of the fire ambulance department, but they're kept separate. You know, and the part that's funded, the firefighting part is funded one way basically, because there's no income for the firefighting department, but the ambulance department has income. And so that there's salaries and things that can be paid out of that income. So it's kept as two
Oh.
separate budgets. And in fact, one part of the budget, the ambulance part, is voted on as a warrant article,
Yeah.
the first one in meetings. And then the fire department piece is voted on in the regular budget meeting for the second annual town meeting. So, you know, that's another thing which is very hard to explain to people.
No, but you're,
Which,
And you gotta
it's
go
one
back,
group
you
of
gotta go
people.
back 30 years to when it started, or
30.
thereabouts, yeah.
no,
And does
which
it
is-
really matter though, when you're just talking about overall operating expenses, if you're just shuffling between departments? Does it really matter?
Well,
Well, what you
Uh,
said, John, I don't know if I heard you correctly. The EMTs are paid, their salaries are paid strictly by the users?
EMTs are firemen.
What,
So if there's only one person.
Technically, are they really though? EMTs are firemen, I know EMTs,
They are.
they might drive around in a fire truck.
Change the word to paramedic and the answer,
Yeah.
yes.
We have paramedics.
That's
and
the next
EMTs.
level up, but we have paramedics that are full-time, and when they aren't doing paramedic stuff, they're doing fire department stuff.
Alright,
So there's been an arbitrary
alright.
percentage set up to
A split
allocate the
was,
salaries in.
And the income from using the ambulance or fire truck, whatever, that income contributes to their salaries, but it doesn't cover it 100%.
Their salary is not 100% devoted to paramedic work.
Well, obviously, because they have fire responsibilities also.
And that's why, and there was a survey done, or supposedly done, some number of years ago that made it's about 75-25, I think, is whatever percentage is. It was decided based upon however they looked at the time, that a certain percentage went towards ambulance duties, paramedic duties, EMT duties, and a certain percentage went towards
Yeah.
firefighting duties. And so the total cost of salaries was split that way. But then the funding for it came from two sources. The ambulance fund is designed also to collect enough money to buy a new ambulance every so many years. And it pays for part of that, but it won't necessarily pay for all of it. Ambulances have gotten a lot more expensive than.
Oh, they are very expensive. Well,
I don't know whether when,
Hmm?
I don't know whether when there's ambulance receipts, I don't imagine that they're charged directly for an individual salary or wage.
But it's money going
But
in,
it-
and then
It
going
probably
to a
goes into
pot.
some sort of a pot and then
Pot,
it,
yeah.
wages
justify
are
that
only
somehow, because you got
only
Medicare
25%
paying
of
for the bulk
Yeah.
of it, and you have
I
insurance companies
understand.
paying for it, so.
Yeah.
I thought it was weird when I first learned of this, but it's common in pretty much every community I've ever
Right.
explored, that, yeah, it's always the fire department and
I think you have to think about this as, basically, abiding by what the people who are paying for it would expect. The federal government isn't gonna pay for fire services, but the federal government will pay for ambulance services for people who get Medicare.
oh, really?
Well,
Oh, for Medicare,
yeah, for Medicare.
that's because, yeah.
So, and Medicare, I imagine, pays for the bulk of all the ambulance
Maybe.
income that you get, and there's insurance for other people, but you can't collect money for ambulance services and then use that money to pay for your firefighting equipment. And
But is it part of operating expenses? That's the question. Regardless of the source of the money, is it part of operating expenses, the fire and ambulance expenses?
Well, that's the problem I had, is how do you define
Are
operating
they-
expenses?
ignoring where the money came from, because this sentence is about operating expenses. So it doesn't matter what the source of the money is.
Oh, I think people will be interested in that.
But you might have to add an
And-
extra sentence then, right?
When the ambulance fund started, the department was structured entirely different from it is today.
Probably.
And the way the accounting was done, the general fund would subsidize the ambulance enterprise fund with a given amount of money. And then it would have its receipts, and the people would be paid out of there for time spent in ambulance work. And then they started putting people on full-time,
Right.
making them firefighters, and that's when everything started changing and
Cause I have
a
a
little less
question.
logical.
Do you have private ambulance companies? If you're in a small village and you can't afford to have your own, are there private ambulance companies that you can hire that would serve your population when needed?
Not that we could afford.
That would even be more expensive than having our own?
Drive up
But-
down Route 33 for a while.
Yeah.
You see Chicopee ambulances and private ambulances.
Well, that's the
all
question.
racing to
Yeah.
different scenes.
Cause
But
we're,
we did there
But
was
we
an
did
investigation
investigate that,
there,
and it
yes,
was
there
more
was.
expensive.
And whoever was asked, it was gonna come out to be more expensive.
cause those guys you have to ask to sit, so where I work, in the parking lot, I'm always seeing, like just ambulances sitting in the parking lot.
Private company
Yeah.
ambulance, not a town.
Because they have to be on call, and they have to be sitting in,
With their engine running probably.
I don't know if their engine is running, but they have to be ready to go. So they're sitting there waiting. So you have to pay for them to just be there.
Be available.
Minutes count.
Yeah, they do.
They really do.
So they're sitting there, I know.
Well, the
for-
reason I'm asking, I have a friend of mine lost his wife because the EMTs are part of the, I won't say the town, but it's in Connecticut, and the fire department went out on a false alarm, and they had like one truck. And so the truck is on the other side of town, his wife needed help immediately, and by the time they got to her, she was dead, and that was a false alarm. So that, we had a lot of discussions in the office, why do you have one truck for this town? And it's a fire truck, by the way, it's not even an ambulance, it's a fire truck.
Don't they, so do we not collaborate with the surrounding community?
We do with South Hadley.
Yeah, so.
But again, as he said, minutes count sometimes, and you've gotta, if you've gotta search for something.
Plus, are you aware that there's a section of town that pays taxes to South Hadley? Because they're technically in the South Hadley.
Is that East Street over there?
Yeah, I do.
No,
You do?
wait a minute, no.
Where?
Not taxes, but water, yeah,
No.
water,
More
Is it?
importantly is up,
What street?
East Street.
No, it is East Street, okay, That's
more
right.
importantly, is the people that are part of fire district number 2.
Yeah, those people over here.
Because they're paying taxes in Granby that support the fire and the ambulance service, and they're paying taxes to the fire district number 2 in South Hadley, which provides fire and,
That's duplicative.
pardon?
That's duplicative.
That's correct. But there's no way.
East Street again, those people that.
We
are-
District One,
What's that?
District One.
I don't know the
But do you have
districts,
fire
that's East.
protection?
No, it's from Granby, but we have water,
You just pay you have a water charge.
yeah,
Well, people in South, we'll say on
the border.
Amherst Road on the east side are
Amherst.
paying an actual
Oh,
tax.
Oh.
one, is that
Based upon what
116?
assessed
Yeah.
to South Hadley, well, to Granby for South Hadley, as well as an assessment on the house.
Yeah, well, that's another situation. East Street is one where houses on one side are in Granby, houses on the other side are in South Hadley. So, you wouldn't know that.
You-
116 has that, East Street in South Granby, South Hadley, whatever you wanna call it. The street, I think, is in this town of South Hadley, but the residences
Oh,
are
you're
in-
talking about over East Street, South Hadley,
Yes,
which is
not
over
East Street,
here.
Granby.
That's a
On
different
East Street,
town.
Granby,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
so East
it's in
Street.
the west, it's in the west end, it's not over here, it's in the west end. There's no East Street in Granby over here.
Right, but, cause it goes from Pleasant Street,
Yeah, Pleasant
to
Street turns into East Street
and then it turns into West Street in Ludlow. And then New Ludlow Road is part of District One,
Right,
that goes from South Hadley to Chicopee.
yep. That's the water line
Yeah.
you're talking about.
Yeah.
There's no water line go up Morgan Street too,
Ways.
but that's probably more
And
recent.
they're gonna get gas.
That's because
too.
of the,
Landfill.
yep, it was due to landfill.
Anyway, that's, it's at best a confusing subject.
Okay, so there's not much change then to,
Right, and you'll just decide if those adjustments matter or,
And then you gotta calculate based upon that answer, right?
Right, right.
okay, so can you give me send me a copy of the email, so I can,
And we don't have the password for the
No, I'm
test,
just
do
gonna do
we?
it when I get home.
okay, and then the last piece is our, what's in it for Granby?
Complacency sheets.
Yeah,
Mhm.
like,
Yeah, I like it.
I'm trying to change it. One thing I wanna think about changing, I'm not happy with this wording about Forge Pond Dam.
Oh,
And could just leave it out.
I would prefer that. I think there's getting to be misinformation and I don't know why. I read your articles that you passed around. And I trust that they did correctly quote Chris, that he was at the meeting that I was at. The actual budget we have for the dam is like 2.6 million to do everything. We increased it by $300,000 to get it to the 2.9. That's the budget that we actually submitted to the state for funding. And now I'm seeing 3.3 million,
Yeah,
which is
that's-
$400,000 on top
Yeah.
of a significant, we don't know when this is gonna happen. So I understand about, you've gotta put some future cost out there. We don't know what the cost of concrete's gonna be if we buy it this year, next year, the year after. So I appreciate that, but increasing a budget by 50%, I started scratching my head, is there something else in there? So, it's just an observation I'm giving you, I don't know.
Yeah, I've,
And one of the articles talked about, they were making the operation and maintenance subject things to grow in that area. But it will require some maintenance, which is mowing the grass once a year. So you keep the blueberry bushes down, the trees from growing up, we don't want that growing on there. I mean, we have a bigger expense up there in Munson Ridge where there's 10 detention ponds that we have to take care of.
One thing, before those articles came out, I didn't know if anybody in town really knew much about it, so I didn't know anything about it. But now there's
That's
been enough
fair.
written, and
Yeah.
I don't think we wanna risk suddenly bringing this up as a point of conversation.
That's my point,
Okay.
that's my point.
And I think it'd be better just to take it out rather than, because it's not needed for this point that we're
No,
making.
it's going to be a special town meeting vote anyway, we know that.
Yeah.
And it's not in the warrants right now, and I think we should hold the conversation until it is. I mean, what do you think, Bob? I mean,
I don't think I agree.
you don't think you agree?
I mean, it's probably gonna be one of the largest capital expenditures that we've made other than the East Middle School. We
Well-
are the finance committee, and to say we don't recognize it as a cost coming down the road, I mean, there's gonna be a cost there.
Oh, there is.
Who knows what it's gonna be, but it's gonna be a
Because
lot.
We're trying to get grants, we're trying to get money to help, but there's a cost that the town is gonna have to shoulder. And how do we do that? But
So I just have a hard time not mentioning it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do
Well, I
agree
guess,
with that.
okay,
It's not,
but how do you present it so you don't
Don't.
set the wrong impression?
We
That's-
don't mention monies.
no,
Well, I think the money's already on the table because it was in the Gazette or Sentinel.
Okay, but we aren't mentioning it.
Oh,
no,
So
we're not,
we're
we're
creating
just saying
the
a
confusion.
future cost,
Right.
because we know this could happen.
Well, it
Right,
is
it
gonna
is,
happen, I mean.
But,
Unless
it's-
somebody says no, the bus is going to arrive at.
right,
And.
so
and-
these are, and
and-
I agree,
And also the way it was presented, they're making it sound, and I'm talking about the writers in these papers.
Yeah.
They're making it sound like the town has a decision to make about, well, maybe we don't wanna do this. We did a study, a project analysis study, that formed a decision to go with replacing the dam, so we spent almost $1 million on getting all the work done that we've got. It's sort of like the comment about the West Street School that they're still talking, they're not anymore, but there were conversations about tearing the school down, and we were still paying on the roof that hadn't been fully paid for. And so a decision has been made to move forward with it's called rehabilitation of the dam, and effectively it's rebuilding the dam structure, and also the dike next to the dam, that regulates the water level of the pond.
Could you put something into the effect, does it need to be fixed? Because the answer is yes, it does.
Yes.
There's no question on that. Hasn't the state said so, so.
It's not us,
So it's
the
not us,
government.
it's the state has
The
said, yes, it
government
has to be
said
fixed.
Yes,
And it's gonna cost a lot of money.
Well,
We just have it, the complacency, don't think that it isn't gonna cost something.
something like that,
Yeah.
that, I like that, I think, without getting into hard numbers, because we
Yeah.
really don't have hard numbers yet,
Mhm.
to be fair. It hasn't been put out on the only way you know is you put it to the market. You know, we've got the drawings, but we haven't put it on the market. You're smiling.
Yeah, I was thinking, maybe, right, this is the exception to the rule. Complacency, we either do this or half the town floats away.
Well, there really isn't any complacency with it, it's just a question
Well,
of.
the people on the west side, you know, if you look at Bachelor Brook, all you people over there at Bachelor Street, you know, you have to go up to Belchertown to come over or go down to Amherst Street maybe.
Your southern part of the south had the water line.
I don't know, it's, all I'm saying is, I think we have to be careful, and maybe, I don't disagree, this is a big thing like we were talking about yesterday, the whole purpose for this is to wave the flag, that we need to focus our attention, so we don't, like your last paragraph here, we don't wanna be making rash judgments
have someone make the judgment or calls for us, like.
And, you know, as I read this and thought about it, I'm wondering, with elected officials in town who aren't getting paid anything, they, you know, their heart's in the right place, I'm trusting, there's no ulterior motives out there, but there might be. But what I'm getting at is, do we have the right people to give us guidance on what can a town do, you know, to balance its budget? And if you're somebody who's just, I mean, we've got 2 positions open or 1 position open on the select board side,
One chair,
1 right now.
one chair.
And obviously they could hire, you know, I don't know, they could hire an expert to give opinions. Do you know what I'm talking about, Bob? I think you do. I mean, this isn't just
No,
steering.
I have a problem with the last paragraph,
Oh,
which is,
you
I'm
do?
not, which is getting a bunch of people together that know what they're talking about. I question whether that's gonna work. I mean, if it did, fine, but
That's what I'm talking about actually is, I mean, everybody's got, it's like the building committee for the West Street School, or West Street Building, whatever. Everybody had they didn't have the experience necessary to make the right judgment calls, okay? So budgets were set without really any backup information, you know, no backup, so now all of a sudden everybody was pointing fingers. You said it was gonna cost this much and it's now costing this much, you know, and everybody immediately thinks there's some ulterior motives, and no, there's no ulterior motives. You know, the first budgets were incorrectly set. So, I think we need guidance, and it's not necessarily, I guess, my observation, it's not necessarily the select board, but
So I think,
do you know what
I know what you're talking about. My whole issue, and I've been saying this, especially since we don't have Chris anymore. So the issue is, I feel sitting here, somebody needs to be able to understand budgeting, communication, understanding and projecting future. So the town administrator has to have someone in place to be able to do the accounting portion without hand-holding. They also need to be able to communicate with the departments in what is your 5-year goal, what is your 10-year goal, how do you see this place running, does it run efficiently? The same thing with the school departments,
Schools.
all the departments, like going through a constant exercise of how does our department run? Are we efficient enough to be able to run smoothly without costing extra money? The other part is, where can we get grants that can support some of the activities that we're doing? The other thing is maintenance. We have buildings, vehicles that need to be maintained. What's the 5-year projection on maintaining? Because to me, I get sick of walking from one building to another building and not maintaining the buildings. So that we come up to a situation where now we need a new place because this one's too far gone. Nobody's thinking about what that future is. When we're doing the budget, are we looking at the budget of our projected revenue, constant revenue, not grants? Grants aren't fixed, those are not, we shouldn't count on something like that. So if we get a grant that's for 3 years, that should never be used towards operating expenses. That's a grant that covers, and you only hire based on that grant, not on, we're gonna have this person come in for 3 years and then keep them. They have to go. So it's those kind of, that's what we need from a town administrator.
But don't you think this is a good tool to
For
focus?
our perspective,
for our-
yes,
Because we can't hire people, all we can do
that's
is
not our
make
job,
a recommendation.
correct.
And I like this as a tool to say, you know, we're running out of money, as you clearly point out.
Well, let me ask you about the dam. I assume, but I could be wrong, that part of that project would be, we would have to hire somebody to become the project manager of it.
Right.
But that's not, this is not gonna be our highway department.
We have that,
Putting in
no.
a new dam.
No, that's part of the budget we have is a
Yeah.
PM.
Yeah,
They call it OPM, Owners Project
I mean, the
Manager.
same thing, for a couple of years, finance committee had put into the selectmen's budget money to hire somebody to come in and figure out what we should do with the schools. They never did anything.
Oh,
We don't know ourselves that we have the talent in town to be able to figure this out. We could figure out quite a bit of it. I don't know if we have the talent to do all of it. And so,
that's my question.
that's part of what an initial group has gotta figure out what happens. We don't, the initial group that I would think would be formed, people like interest, would create sort of the background for the project. And then you may need some experts to come in and help you out, work out exactly how you go about doing
I think
it.
absolutely.
Because I can't imagine that the town doesn't want more services than we're willing to pay for.
Well, the headwind you run into, because I've seen this a lot in private industry, as you may have also, these are the consultant reports that wind up on the shelf. And people yell, they talk about, we were spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on people telling us how to do our business, and then the book sits on the shelf and you don't use it.
There's no follow through after.
There's no follow through. So that's why having a group or somebody's responsibility, not only to define what needs to happen or what might, I don't know if there's a black and white solution here. It's probably, this is what we found happen in other towns and this is what you can consider, and then somebody's gonna have to make a decision, and that probably falls on the select board's responsibility to say, let's take this option or let's take this option. But I think we as the finance committee do have a fiduciary responsibility to do exactly what this is saying. We're running out of money, guys. We can't keep, we haven't run out of money yet, but next year or the year after, it's gonna happen. So how do we not wind up getting into a predicament? And when you talk about the dam, that's exactly what the Army Corps of Engineers have said. They put together a disaster if there's a catastrophic failure. Because the way they look at it is, you got a catastrophic failure, and this happened in real life just last year down in Texas, where those school kids that were camping.
At summer camp.
Because a storm, a storm happened to put a lot of rain in this certain valley that this one creek or stream or whatever drained. So they had 5-6 inches of rainfall in this one area. It was like a bowl that caught everything and shot it down the river, and it wiped out all the shore. Well, we've got the same thing at Forge Pond that catches water for I'm not gonna say it, but it's a huge catchment area. And if we had the unfortunate thing to happen where a particular storm drops water in Belgium, just in that area, it could flood Forge Pond, knock down the dam, and now you've got a torrent going down Bachelor Brook, and it's good there. They forecast losing all the roads down to Amherst Street. Luckily, everything went over the Aldridge Dam because that's a newer dam. Thank you. So that
No,
worked.
I got it.
I thought you
I sold it before it became
Oh,
new.
you sold it. But anyway, the houses in the streets, all Bachelor Street would be segregated from the rest of the town. And, now, they stopped their study at the Granby line. We don't have a lot of density, there'd be houses lost, but we don't have a lot of density along the brook. You get into South Hadley and there's a lot of density along the Bachelor Brook on the South Hadley side. And somebody said, well, we should get South Hadley to help pay for this, and I'm like, well, it's a Granby town, it's a down property, so I don't think we're gonna get South Hadley. I mean, you'll hear about it if something happens, but.
The courts will be looking at support going the other way.
Shades of 1954.
What happened in I was only one, so
Well,
you,
I was a little older than that. Hadley.
Oh,
It took out the mill that's near,
oh, so something like this
Oh,
did
yeah.
happen.
yeah.
This is-
It took out the dam that held a pond for a mill that's
There's a
on-
dam
on
over-
Woodbridge Street in South Hadley.
over there. Well, Grant, the Forge Pond is the only town dam. The Aldridge is owned by the federal, DCR owns Aldridge Dam.
Yeah.
And we have 3 other dams that are, well, no, there's a dam at Dufrane's also for Ingraham Brook, there's a little earthen dam there. But we have private dams in other locations, so, but we're only focused on Forge Pond, and so there will be talk, pushback, but
How about if you don't put Forge Dam in up here and put it in as an addition down there at the bottom, to make the bottom a little bit more financially oriented.
Make the, put it where? At the bottom of this page?
Yes,
Well,
what
it's
I'm
already-
thinking is to change the wording such that, in line with what you said, committee to figure out how to proceed to get this plan done. And as one of the reasons for it would be, obviously, we're running out of money. And we didn't even mention Forge Dam, which is gonna be a substantial cost.
Maybe we change the wording and instead of just saying an item in complacency, maybe we make a little comment, something like, the Forge Pond Dam deserves a comment by itself. This is a real disaster waiting to happen.
could be.
You know, and there's no complacency here, we gotta do something.
We gotta do
Yeah.
something.
We've passed the
we-
complacency.
We have passed the time, we are past the time of complacency.
Yeah. Our consultant got
Even,
hired.
even the state has now demanded that
Mhm.
something
Yeah,
be done.
Yeah.
well,
It's required.
but that dam is over 100 years old. That's the long story short. So it does need to be replaced or rehabilitated. He cautioned me on using the word replaced because that conjures up. I mean, we are replacing the dam. There's nothing going to be saved from the dam. I mean, right now that dam is just going from border to border, and we are integrating retaining walls on both sides of it, that it becomes like an H in the ground. So it can hold, like, Aldrich is actually like that. It's got large retaining walls on the side, and the dam is connected in the middle. So unless you wash out all the earth around it.
This is like being in a car accident every year. After 20 years, you ask, is this the same car or these are all new parts? You know?
Well, that'll be all new parts.
What if they said, let's take, I mean, I know you're saying it costs more, but what if they took out the dam? What would happen to the brook? I mean,
What
over
Chris
time, wouldn't it
was-
go back to its
They
natural?
didn't say it exactly the way I understood it, but
Yeah.
that analysis really wasn't completed. So the cost includes another entire analysis of removing the dam, which had to do with.
That's what the article said,
scout.
the cost to
They-
take it down is 4.8 million.
They threw that number out as higher than the cost to,
Because part of the reason is nobody studied, I don't think they even should have.
nobody looked at it.
They don't know what the consequences
Because
are,
they
it
don't
hasn't been
really
studied.
know.
Yeah.
Mm.
Somewhere in the 96, 97, when they did the first analysis, they determined that there would be too much degradation to the area, including homeowners that are in that area. We have a lot of people that have shallow wells in town, especially up there. That was built as a cottage community. They only used it for summer. But we have a lot of people living now. They built some nice homes in that, off that lake.
because we did have the override and it was about originally 300,000, right? And it wasn't not a one-time 300,000, correct?
Excuse me, what?
It was not a one-time 300,000.
No, it was a permanent increase to the taxes.
Permanent increase
Wasn't
to
a,
taxes.
wasn't a project.
So since then, it's been increasing by the 2.5%.
Well, it's not the
Yes.
way,
Yeah.
the amount of money that's collected, but well, first of all, the very first thing, the worst thing is this. Even though it's passed as a permanent override, it wasn't a specific project override which entered a period of time. It's only good for 1 year. You pass the override, which is a permanent override for a certain amount of money, and you pass it for a specific
Right.
project
Yeah,
or a specific thing. You have to use the money in that first year for that thing that you passed the override, but you don't have to use it after that.
you don't, you
No,
can just use it
that's
for
like
anything?
when we passed the $300,000 override for the schools
Yeah.
15, 20 years ago. And, we said at the time, the way the override works is that if that gives the school $300,000 that has to be given to them for 1 year only.
Mhm.
Now, the finance committee and the town administrator kept giving them the $300,000, but it's a 1 year deal on an override.
We've now worked that number up to 890,000.
And the school number.
Yeah, and that's not, that's a lot additional.
Wow. So if the town did just to say, hey, we're gonna end curbside trash pickup, you could use that money for anything else.
Mhm.
Right.
Boy, that doesn't seem.
That's
fair.
why, that's why I put this in as a complacency thing, because,
I
you know.
agree with you.
If you had something that you wanted an additional $300,000 every year for, $600,000, actually,
Yeah,
it's off the books and it has not changed as an expense for the town citizens.
no.
The
I-
town citizens are going to pay more money than if they were paying taxes for this.
Yes.
But it's not on the town's books. And on the town's books, suddenly, there's a $600,000 surplus. So what do you wanna do with $600,000 a year? Well,
Right.
I can tell you, 5 or 6 people would tell you right away what they do with $5 or $6,000 a year.
Oh dear.
I told John that at last night's, or Monday night's selectmen's meeting,
Select board.
that they voted to contact, local services to do a financial review of the town. So don't ask me how that plays into
I
here.
hope it's a first step.
I mean,
Maybe.
well, yeah, but I'm not sure that I think it's part of the step, not the whole step.
Is that a company name, Local Services, or they're just saying they're
Part
gonna
of
look?
DOR, Dunham.
Oh, all right, I didn't, that's why I'm asking. So-
It's most likely to be just half of the equation, an income.
Or a third of it, yeah,
Yeah.
Well, that's a
looking at the
positive.
I'm not 100% sure whether they're looking at practices or a revenue projection,
Hmm.
because they did a revenue projection 10 years ago, which has never been updated.
So when they take over a town or a city, like say Springfield was kind of in state control for a while, what part of the state is doing that? They've gotta be looking at both sides, expenses and revenue, right?
I don't remember Springfield's situation.
They took over the school system in Springfield.
No.
No, that was Holyoke.
They
Holyoke.
took over.
In
Holyoke.
Holyoke, they
They
took
took over
over.
the school system.
I don't know. if that's
Springfield, I do know they did come in, cause I remember when I was in, government budgeting, the person that was teaching the class was a consultant that came in, cause they had oversight in Springfield.
Yeah, they had oversight.
Yeah. But I don't remember how long that was, or the reason. I just remember he was talking about oversight.
Do you remember, John, on South Hadley, whether they had the DOR in there?
I don't remember
I
that.
don't remember either. But South Hadley
I thought they did
went
something.
through
Yeah.
long planning things and came up with their override amounts, which everyone defeated. was to plan out for the
Yeah.
immediate future. I don't think it was all money to be spent to balance the budget. It was to balance the budgets over time.
And that's, I'm not aware of the details inside that, but for starters, if raising taxes by $11 million is part of what your plan is, you don't have a good plan. You don't have a good plan. A plan has to be, here's what we do with this amount of money, here's what we might do with this amount of money, and then you figure that out, so that if you have one plan that says, here's what we do with the next $11 million, and that fails, you just automatically have your other plan, of what you would do if you have no additional money. And that's what Granby needs, a plan that says we have no additional money, what we're gonna do with what we got, and then if by chance people wanna do something different, what would they be willing to spend money on? And that's even in a little sideways look, what the question's gonna be about the trash collection. You know, what are we gonna do? We're gonna keep doing what we do, then the money has gotta come from other things that can't be done because there's money.
Or an additional-
Because it's not the
or
same
another
amount of money
override.
there as as people thought there would be in $2016 instead of $2026.
Long Meadow passes overrides all the time. But they have a process for doing it, which seems to be, anytime they can find some middle-sized project, do it
Yeah,
as
it's
a debt
like-
exclusion or as a special override just for the project.
Oh.
So, I mean, if they've got something for $500,000, they're likely to put it up as an override and.
You vote on just that.
And that's, you know, if it's a 5-year deal, it's over and done with, but they have a ton, they passed a ton of overrides.
It's a good way to do it.
Well, no, that's a strategy that I think we
Yeah.
need to consider.
But that's just a smaller scale of what you do when you build a school. You pass a temporary override when you build a school. Old temporary is 30 or 40 years.
Just for that project.
But you can do the same thing with any project if you convince people that, all right, we wanna spend $10 million on this. So what we need to do is pass an override that would spread this cost over 10 years. Borrow money, spent over 10 years, and you expect your taxes will go up for those 10 years, and then the taxes go back down again.
Do we ever get into?
And then
well,
is that override dedicated to that thing for 10 years, or after the first year, can you just
No,
take
it
the money?
should be.
and-
No,
It's
Yeah.
dedicated to it.
It's dedicated to it. That's how you build the schools. We build the schools, we borrowed
Yeah.
$10 million
Yeah,
and passed an override with, I think we have 30-year borrowing on
yes.
these middle schools. So for 30 years, our taxes are higher. Well, you can see, we're collecting $800,000 a year
Right.
in taxes specifically for paying off the
That's
school.
paying the mortgage of the
Yeah.
school.
And that's not a fixed amount of taxes every year. That's figured out for each year what it's gonna be. Up to, I mean, there's a maximum that can be raised in taxes, but it's a little different amount each year. Well, what-
As an example, the fire truck that we're gonna,
Well, fire trucks are expensive.
well, we've approved one, and they cut the cost on it back, but it's still gonna be over $1 million.
Yeah.
And yes, we can borrow it for 40 years or whatever the expected life of the truck would be.
Vehicle will be.
But on the other hand, if you put that up as an override, you could find out whether the people are willing to pay for it or not. And at $1 million and you spread it over anything, the debt service adds up, and as you keep borrowing everything and
Wow.
say, you don't have to pay it this year, but we'll pay it over the next number of years, that can get rather onerous because
It can get
there's
expensive.
still no source of revenue for it,
Yeah.
other than
Well, it's a
cutting
cost.
back in the future.
Yeah, it's not an expense, it's a cost.
Yeah, and some of the bigger expenses for rolling equipment has been done by borrowing money for 5 years. But telling the people of town that this is an obligation of the town, but the plan is for the next 5 years to take a certain amount of money out of the capital needs stabilization fund and use that to pay for the expense.
Use of the vehicle.
Yeah, and that's a good way to do things, as long as intellectually you understand that what you should be doing is taking money out of stabilization fund to pay for things,
Put
and
it
at the
that
same
way.
time, putting money back in the stabilization fund. Because you can let it go down for a while, but if you let it go down to zero, which has happened now for the general purpose stabilization fund, it's down to $30,000 or so. It is no longer a stabilization fund. You know, it's not gonna stabilize anything.
No, it's too small.
Does it's,
not-
if you fire an employee, you get more money than you get from the stabilization fund. So that is just not make any kind of sense.
It's
So
not a
you
rainy
have- you
day
have to have
fund,
your
it's
own trash can though.
not a rainy day fund, not a shower fund.
Yeah, yeah.
Not even a mist fund.
I mean, a town our size, I can't imagine we don't have 10% of the annual budget in stabilization funds, but we don't.
That was
We-
one of my, like, when I was on, a long time ago, strategic planning for the schools. One of my comments was, how do you save for your future costs? Oh, we don't.
That's the beauty of being in control of taxes.
Well,
My
like,
Proposition 2.5 was passed in Massachusetts, and a similar, model
It
on
just doesn't-
California.
like,
The
to me, it
politicians just
doesn't
need
make
to raise
sense.
taxes.
Well, private industry doesn't have the ability to do what you're saying,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, I mean, everything here, like, you look at everything here, there's a future cost. It's not today, it's a future cost. Someday it's gonna be today. And if you have a leaky roof, you have to repair it. You kinda have to save for those leaky roof things.
Should be, should be.
Right. So I just, I mean, I do that, and maybe because I'm a finance person, I do
there's-
that at-
I think there's a word for it.
I do that at home. Like, I have an account that's strictly for my mortgage, and I always put more in there because I know there's gonna be a future cost to repair my home.
Right.
That's a given.
It's a given.
So while I don't put a lot away, it does add up over time,
You know, it does.
so that I don't have to take out a loan.
My family owned real estate, and we learned the number of times that you have to put 10% aside.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an amount that needs to be put aside. It doesn't mean you have to, but at least when you do your books, like we're looking at this, you can see, well, we need a roof, and we should have this much money in this account.
Yep.
So you have to take it out of operations and say, okay, let's fix our roof, because
Right.
we can't have leaky roofs, you know, because
Yeah.
that causes other issues.
Yeah.
Let's get back and see
Yeah.
if we can finish up. So what do we do about the item, does the Forest Pond Dam really need to be fixed? Do I put that put it as the last item rather than the second last item and say complacency
Has arrived.
has arrived? Complacency has run its course.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's the right word, but it's the
Yeah.
right idea.
That's right, yeah.
Right. Right.
Okay, I'll try some wording around that.
Mhm.
I liked your originally thought, we are past the time of complacency.
Yeah.
Something like that, or if you wanted me to, I can get you the name of the agency that's telling us to repair the dam, but I don't know if that, I think it would be better to keep it as the complacency lingo
Yeah.
that we've got going
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
and
Cause
not-
so everything else it's going to happen, this has happened.
Yeah. And
About
I'll mention the state in there.
Well, it's
Yeah.
just the state,
The
it's
state
the
is.
Office of
Yeah.
Dam Safety.
So about the school, I mean, if we did do some kind of regionalization, that would address that issue, right? I mean, we wouldn't need the building. I'm not saying it would be cheap, but
Is that
we
what
wouldn't
that-
need the
Is that
building.
what that's saying, is we have to replace that building? We can't.
You know, the situation with the junior senior high school is that there's a law in Massachusetts that if you repair a public building, and your repairs cost more than certain percentage, I think it's 30%.
No, I understand all that.
Then you gotta bring the whole building up to
Right.
code. Well, the high school valuation on their books is only like in the neighborhood of $4 million. So, and we ran into that because we, at a town meeting a few years ago, we approved 2 repairs to the high school. Repair to the cafeteria and repair to, maybe it was the gym floor.
The gym.
floors,
Okay, all right, and then we asked the building inspector, and the building inspector said, well, you could do $1.2 million worth of repairs every 3
Oh.
years, every 3 years.
It's triggered by the.
So, one article got thrown out because if we were gonna do that, then all of a sudden, we have to spend $100 million and bring the school up to code. So that's the problem, that's the problem.
But replacing the building is a lot more expensive than upgrading it. Cause the
Maybe.
building is bigger than it needs to be for
Maybe.
Granby. You know, that was designed for 1,000 students or something, or we have 800
Yeah, I think classrooms are too small.
Well, the classroom structure, from my understanding, is not current.
We used to have
what-
1,100 kids in the entire school system,
Right.
but the high school was much bigger, in terms of students.
What I was getting at is there's space to do things in that building, as long as it's, the way I would look at it is if it's structurally sound to accommodate what needs to happen. Cause I know you're talking about doorway widths, you're talking about the hallways, but elevators, circulation, HVAC, electrical.
But my understanding is that you can't do just part of it.
No, no,
If you
have to-
say you've got a building with so many thousands of square feet, I don't think you can say, well, we wanna convert that to a building with only 20,000 square feet. I don't know if you can do that.
What do you, say that again?
If you wanted to use only a quarter of the building, and you said, well, we'd like to repair a
That's not
quarter of
that
the building, I don't know if you can do that.
Well, no, you'd have to present a plan that you're gonna do the whole building, you may be doing it in steps, but you have to present it. And then I guess the question would be, how much of the building do you actually need? Because when we did the East Meadow renovation, West Street was still in operation, and they put the addition on, and I think the renovations while they were using the existing building. And then they closed West Street and all those kids went to the new part of East Meadow. So you have to have a stepping stone, and we don't have another high school to use.
And over there, it's the junior, senior, so you have 7th.
You've got to accommodate all the kids that are
Yeah.
currently using the building.
Cause even
So-
if the state had changed, Granby
Separation.
didn't, so the state changed, it was 6, 7, 8. East Meadow has K through 6, and then the junior, senior, 7 through 8, so even if we did regionalize, we still
We still
have
got those two
the 7th
grades.
and 8th grade that we wouldn't have a place for them. So that's the issue. Is we could regionalize the high school, but we still have the juniors.
So there's studies done on this, is there a plan of what to do, or is that just a flag you're putting up that there's a need there that has to be determined?
I don't know, I'm not aware of any study.
So you're identifying a need. Not even that, you don't think?
No, there's been a need determined by the school committee.
That building doesn't meet.
Whether it was done with a private study
Right,
or
right.
by themselves, I don't know.
Right.
I don't think it was done by
But
someone
the school
outside.
committee is telling us that that building needs to be replaced, or what are they
Well,
telling?
we had a proposal 10, 15 years ago
Oh, I
to
remember.
build a new school,
I was,
which means that at that point in time, people were dissatisfied with the condition of the size of the, who knows what.
you know,
It was an interesting situation, because every year I think the school committee or the superintendent sends in information to the state about what the town would be interested in doing around schools. For years and years and years and years, school committee sent in the same report, our number one priority is West Street School. Number one priority is West Street School, went on for years and years and years. Finally came around to time to think about building a school, all of a sudden they wanted to build a new junior, senior high school. And that's what they turned into the state, that the state approved build junior, senior year high school. Up until that previous years, the West Street School had been the number one priority. We even wrote about it.
There still are SOIs being sent in to the Commonwealth, I believe.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know about
I mean,
this particular year, but.
We don't
I'm
normally
sure
send them,
every
but they do it every year.
What's
Which
an
mean-
SOI?
Statement of interest, they'd like the
Oh.
state to come in and help pay for the
Sure.
cost of rehabbing or renovating or building new.
The challenge is, of course, that's the only building, so.
Bob, what's your suggestion for the last item? It's like, suggesting select board put together a special committee.
I liked your wording. I liked your wording that you mentioned, which was that this committee would figure out how to go about solving the problem.
Right.
Not solving the problem themselves,
Right, get some professionals.
get
yeah.
some professionals to,
We're identifying the problem, so we're waving the flag. And now it's up to the select board to really come up with solutions. It may not
Action
be, it
plan.
may not be one solution. It may
No,
be,
there
there
is
may be
some.
options here that we
Yeah.
need to consider.
Okay, the first sentence, put together a special committee as soon as possible, look at the services the town wants to provide its citizens. The funds available for those services, materials necessary to match those two. The question is whether or not that committee from the start should have outside professional help. Whether that committee should be there for the purpose of drawing up the background to bring in outside professional help to say how you go about doing this.
Oh.
It seems to be that, as Jen has said many times, the town people have to be involved in this.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to talking about trade-offs and what services might we cut, might we not provide.
But they
Um,
can't be asked to make a decision without information. That's my problem with what you just said.
So,
The town has to be involved, but we have to give them information so that they can make informed decisions.
right,
We
and,
can't just ask them to
no,
give us a solution when we're running out of money and they're gonna say, well,
so they have to rate, their first step is to make sure that the departments are functioning. Cause right now, just based on watching the select board and watching, like Chris explain the dysfunction that's happened.
it's also in the newspaper now.
Correct.
They're sharing that.
So
the
it's-
word is out.
So it's extremely dysfunctional. They have to get the departments functioning, collaborating, communicating, and working together again. Getting our books in order, cause I mean, we're looking at stuff that's not complete. That's very frustrating. It's not, so in order for us to give informed decisions, we have to have things that look like they're complete. And right now, nothing is complete. We have some things that are complete, we have a person who's willing to help us. And looking at stuff that is so dysfunctional, it's even hard for him to get it together. So it needs to be, right now, it's the squeaky wheel, it needs the grease. Everybody start collaborating, working together, and functioning. And then we can see things to be able to help people make informed decisions. right now, there's, as I see, there's no money. There's no money, and we can't function without money. Cause we can't have proper things in place for us to run smoothly. And that starts with the town departments. And if that's not working, then they need to figure it out.
In reading that article, the dysfunction seemed to go beyond the run-of-the-mill employee. It was wording to the effect that the top echelon isn't communicating with the department heads.
That's the way it was presented.
And that's a different level
Yeah.
than how come this hasn't been posted.
Right,
And it's a
correct.
di-
That is the way they
So I,
present
and
it.
I have no idea
I don't know how that
of
happens.
examples of that.
But there is no top echelon, that is,
Well, yes, there is.
Well-
Every department head has a boss,
Yeah.
and maybe an elected official.
They have to be
and
talking
road town
back and
administrator,
forth.
that's a big problem.
Mhm.
And no backup,
Well, without a town
Either.
administrator, then
you know.
So the town
department heads that would report to that person could be a problem.
Just the.
But, and obviously, without a town administrator, there isn't gonna be any
Right,
back and forth, but
and
I wonder whether it goes beyond that.
it's a communication problem, I've been saying that, I think that is one thing that I have been consistently saying. There is a communication problem
Now,
in this
is
town.
it since Chris, or did it exist
It
before?
existed before, it existed before, so just sitting and listening, so when I sit, cause most of the time I just listen to how people communicate. We have a lot of people who are standing grounds on what they believe, nobody willing to work together, so that's a huge issue. We want a future, we wanna keep moving forward, but we have people stuck here. And nobody is willing to come up with a solution to help keep things moving forward. Everybody just sees it as, I don't wanna do this. Well, I get that, except for you want this, how do we get here? And that's a collaborative, that's people communicating, working together. And it's also when you have people at the top, they have to be willing to put in the work to be able to say and speak to the community and say, this is what we need, help us figure out how to get it. And that is a community collaboration. And that's where you get your town involved. But it does come from the top, and that communication is key. And that leadership skill is key, because leadership gets people more involved, willing, because that person is willing and dedicated to the community. But I have not seen that.
Well, our town form of government creates a breeding ground for that. Everybody's got responsibilities, which I don't even know if there are job descriptions for our elected officials.
Elected
Bylaws say it's, they gotta do something, but I've never seen job descriptions for our elected officials. So,
Oh.
they decide themselves what their job is, and that's created some of the problems in the past. We don't have problems with people disappearing for weeks at a time and nothing happening, but it could, because they're a law unto themselves. So under those kind of circumstances, you need a great deal of willingness of people at the top levels to work with other people, and that's, you can't compel that with independently elected people. It feels like, take a look at our government, it can't be compelled to work together.
I would make a law that if you wanna be in government, you gotta be able to talk to each other in a civil tone.
Yeah.
All politics are personal.
That's right. And politics, by the way, is everything we live in. That's our society. And people get confused between partisanship and politics. You can be different parties, but we all are in politics. We all communicate. We all live with each other. what you're talking about is very similar, even private industry where I've been from, they call that silo mentality.
Yep.
I'm in my own silo and I don't need to talk to highways and,
Yeah.
or schools or,
Right.
I'm the library and that's all I need to deal with is the library. Well, unfortunately, the people in these different silos do need to communicate with each other.
Otherwise it's chaos.
Well, the right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing, so, and
Well-
that's what's being published.
Give you an example. There's a $30,000 warrant article to move everybody into West Street building when it's finished.
Yeah, yeah.
And we have people that are in the employ of the town that can help to move them.
Didn't they say I thought they said, the committee said they asked those people, the building department people, and they said they couldn't do it.
We were talking about, this
Well,
is
I'm-
moving furniture, moving files,
I'm
moving.
not about the, I can't tell you. Did
But
they
it's
a- did they
physically
ask them
moving,
or-
right? That's
Yeah.
why I read it.
Pardon?
It's physically moving.
Physically
into the-
moving,
That's
yeah.
not, that's not cheap. And no, you.
No, but you have a building department with employees and you have a highway department with employees.
Well, that's-
And if you really wanna cooperate,
That's true,
those
but
departments would say, yeah, we'll bend over backwards to help you guys out.
maybe, I don't know.
But apparently that didn't happen.
Well,
Yeah, I don't know the different personalities, but
maybe you will in the end if the warrant article doesn't pass. Yeah.
no, true.
I would like to see that last paragraph, from our perspective, deal with money a little bit more. Rather than what the people want in the way of services, to structure it around money is going to make it very difficult for us to expand services.
Expand, maybe.
I would
to
you
keep
use the
level,
word
right?
expand or just continue with the
Continue.
services we have?
Yeah.
Cause I would quickly say, well, I don't expand, just keep doing what you're doing and I'll be happy. But I think according to what John, you're saying is, we'll have great difficulty just to continue providing services that we currently are providing, correct?
Yeah.
So I think that has to be the message, and,
Well, I'd put in, services the town wants to provide its citizens, funds available, and the trade-offs
that's
necessary to
the
match these two.
No, that's
Is that-
exactly right. When it needs
Is
to be,
that-
it needs to be kept simple language, so people can. Where is this presented? This, you verbalizing this, or is this actually?
I'm gonna speak this page.
Okay. It's not printed in the,
It is.
No, it's
It'll
printed.
be printed.
It's
oh, it
printed.
will be,
It's
alright,
printed.
well, that's,
It's printed.
so it is important to get the
How would
language.
you word it,
the
Bob?
words.
I don't
right.
know. I've tried to come up with words and can't.
Well, it's,
Do we wanna not make it look like this is gonna be the committee to decide everything? Or this committee is
Well, I don't
charged
think
with?
it, I think that there's some outside expertise needed
and this is,
to eliminate special interests that are gonna be, people are gonna have.
Yeah, everybody's got a special interest.
Yeah, of some sort, I like this department, I like that department, whatever.
Mhm.
That's insane.
you need the core group, the select board to be
I
the
just-
decision
I
makers.
find it insane.
But they
Yeah.
need
When
information.
People do that.
They do it though all the time.
But it's part of human nature.
No, I know.
It's- They're not being they are being selfish.
Yeah, it is selfish.
It is.
And whoever's on the committee should be just general people.
Well,
Well, there tends to be
that gets into my complaint with the building committee.
Tends to be what?
when committees are formed frequently, it's a certain group of people that keep
That
getting appointed to
interest.
them.
Yeah. That you're
may not be
it's
a,
the same 20
it
people.
may not be an impartial group to start with.
Also, you always have to worry in committee, you'll have people who think that their opinions count the same as somebody else's facts.
Well,
You know, that's the big problem.
that's true.
You see everywhere, people think their opinions, which are protected by the First Amendment, are the same as other people's facts, which are protected by nature.
Or gravity or something else, you know.
Well, or if you appoint someone to a committee that's been elected to an office, that must mean that they're representing a whole pile of people when they're on the committee. And they aren't, they're only representing themselves at that moment in time, or may only be representing.
But sometimes people don't volunteer either, so it's hard to get people, if people aren't willing to volunteer, to be on a committee. Cause, I mean, people find many excuses as to why they can't do something. I'm sitting here, I work full-time or late, and I
See-
still manage.
See, when I read this, I can't tell you how many hospital boards and physician groups, large physician groups, they don't form subcommittees. That's an expensive, and you've got the dealing with the personalities involved, which you're alluding to. It's the key people that are running the various departments, so if you're building something, it's that person. So in my view, when I read this, I was thinking this is the select board that will be responsible to hire the various consultants or consulting firm that's going to solve this, come up with the solutions that we need to consider. And then they would make a recommendation based on what information is provided them and how to move forward. And it would be, I think what you're alluding to or what you spoke, where is it, ABC, well, this is our primary goal. But if that doesn't work, we've got other options here that we can engage as needed. Just so that you can see what's happening now with the future, we know where our dollars are going. And we need to somehow, as you correctly say, match services with our costs.
Is the idea that we want the committee to consist of both citizens and non-citizens with appropriate expertise to look at this? Is that kind of wording?
Because is this something, the ultimate, does this have to go in front of a town special, meeting that gets voted on? Or is this just
No,
a
the select board,
this is a
select
steering,
board to the points of, I need some money to hire people.
this is a steering, this is a tool, you give them the necessary tools so they can steer the town, so we don't drive the thing off a cliff, right? That's what we're talking about here,
Yeah, basically,
yeah.
but it doesn't have to be approved by anybody except the select board is a committee of the select board ultimately responsible.
Well, that's what I'm
So it's a
getting at,
committee
they
of the
have to
select
be the body, they're elected, so
Mhm.
they have to be the body that make the ultimate decision, but they can't do it in a vacuum. So
Could
what's
we-
yours,
Could we even give, like, I mean, obviously not offhand, but would we be able to say, okay, this is what, financially, this is what we would need to do to put the town on a secure basis going forward? Like, we need to increase revenue 10% and cut expenses 10%. Can we say something like that? Do we have enough information to, you know, cause if it's all in bits and pieces, I mean, if a committee had something to spring off of in terms of the financial goal, you know, what do we need in order to be
but can you tell the
secure.
town to cut expenses, aren't there,
I
are there
mean-
mandates that we have to pay teachers, pay different employees certain amounts of money and
You know, to
have
me,
certain increases based on merit, but still,
everything should
I'd say
be,
based on merit.
no?
yeah.
But there are things that have to be done.
But that's what I'm getting at.
For example, you can't fire the assessors.
That's
Because
what
you
I'm
fire the
getting at.
assessors doesn't mean that's it. It means you've gotta go out and hire for
Hire them.
more money, people to come in and do the evaluations. So, I mean, there's certain things that have to be done. You know, the highway department's now got all kinds of, this thing with culverts a few years ago, you know.
Yeah, I
They
know.
got all sorts of stuff that's gotta get done.
Right, but I mean, a lot of, people usually do start with a financial goal, I think, that they know. They might say, go to all the department heads, you've gotta figure out a way to cut your expenses 5%. And then they'll look for their 5% and they'll come back and say, no, I
That's not
can't,"
what we wanna do.
you know.
That's not what we wanna do.
But how much money do we need? That's the question.
That's what we don't know. We don't know how much money we need, because we don't know what people want.
Yeah.
And we don't know what people want and they're willing to pay for it.
But what if
And
you,
look at any family. How much money do you need? 400 million a year to take care of us. Okay, all right,
No,
well,
but
let's back that down a little bit.
I could tell
Okay,
you, right?
we won't hire Rolls Royces.
You could tell me.
Well, 300 million a year will do. You can't do it that way. It always depends upon trading off what it is you wanna do versus how much money you have. So those things have to be looked at together.
They do, John, but we have them together right now, right? We know what services we provide, we know how much money we need a year to provide those services. So couldn't we say something like, just to keep on doing what we're doing, we need, so much more money?
But that's just part of it. That's just part of it. We don't know, as a town, that we wanna keep on doing the things that we're doing.
But it's a catch-22, because unless you know how much you need,
That's why you need people studying both sides of it. You need the same group of people looking at the income piece and the expense piece, and asking where desires and wants and needs and the money to pay for it.
But Granby doesn't offer, this isn't a luxurious town to live in. It's not like we have services that, aren't our services are pretty basic? I mean, you made a comment that kind of stuck with me about schools, that we don't have to bus kids that are a mile from school. Well, what percentage of our houses are close enough to any of our schools that are within a mile, and the majority of the kids are being driven there by their parents anyway? So what I'm getting at is, even Dufresne's Grove, they're nice, but there's nothing special about those plots of land, you know? I think where you're getting at is, we need to be able to balance our services with our income, and from various sources, it's not just taxes, it's various sources of income. But we have to be able to balance that, so our goal is to have a balanced budget, and that's the town goal. We already have that as a goal, right? That's already, I don't know if it's written down somewhere, but that's our goal. And
But
we're
the town operations are kind of built on complacency. We
It
just
is.
go along, and whatever happens in the next year, and whatever money we find out, we adjust that year and go on and do that. There's been no opportunity for somebody to sit down and say, let's stop doing that. Let's pick a goal and say, this is what we're aiming at. We wanna make sure that we have full-time this, we wanna make sure we have part-time this. We wanna make sure that people can do this for themselves, not the town. And decide how the town experience wants to go. Because right now, what we're doing is we're basically doing what you're suggesting, is that we say, okay, this year, what do we gotta do? Oh my God, we gotta cut 5% out of the budget, how are we gonna do that? That's not the way to do it. That has no valid relationship to wants and desires.
I know, but you're not putting any facts out here, like, okay, we need to rebuild the, stabilization fund, we need to, it would seem to me that we could quantify in some way, some of the needs. Like you're saying, right now, we're just, robbing from Peter to pay Paul, we're just going forward day by day, year by year. But I think people need to know what is our goal, how much, how much surplus do we need in order to feel that we could meet unexpected contingencies, or, 'cause what can this committee do? I mean, maybe they can say, okay, well, we know we need a high school, we know we need to Forge Dam. We know that health insurance is gonna continue to increase. I mean, some of these things,
Well, right there, I gotta stop you. We don't know anything. We don't know we need anything. We don't know that. We don't know we need high school. We don't know that we provide education in the town. We don't know that. That's what this committee has gotta say. Here's how we go about deciding whether, here's how we go about how asking the town whether that's what they want or not.
You're right about the high school, because we can't use the building as it currently at, right? Nobody's come and said the building is unsafe, it's unhealthy, structurally unsound. Nobody has said that. The building works. It doesn't work as efficiently or as effectively as it could. And that would be very costly either to renovate the existing building or rebuild it. Those are our two options.
Maybe what is bothering me is a word that you just used, what we want.
Yeah.
I don't like that word, because what we want gets us into a, I don't know, a place where there's no coming back from. Because that's wishes. Needs is what is important.
Well, that's,
And people might be willing to pay for needs, but there's no way you're ever gonna get a consensus on wants. Because
Yeah.
this person wants this, and this one wants that, and this one over here,
That-
a
that's-
different thing, you see, you
right.
can't get them together.
but that's why I answered the question of, how much would your family, well, 400 million a year ought to do it. And, because that's the one side of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the one side of it.
But there's a need which is different.
What are
And so-
the necessities of our
And so you can't ask that, you have to ask the family, how much are you willing to pay to go on vacation? That's pretty much the first question.
I'm gonna build a pool out there and
You
get
have to-
those fancy patio bricks.
Okay, well then, see, you got a plan and you got a financing mechanism for that?
It's cheaper than vacation.
But when
Right.
you,
Cheaper than vacation.
but when you don't ask your kids, where do you wanna go on vacation, but how much money are you willing to spend to go on vacation, then you get a different plan. And that's what there is no mechanism for. I mean, any one of us could say, well, gee, it would be nice if we build a brand new building to house all employees. Put it all together in one big lot. That would be nice, look like a major city. But we're not gonna do that.
But it's expensive, and nobody
Yeah.
wants to pay that dollar.
Nobody wants to pay for that, you may want it, but you don't want it that much. What can you get for $1 million? That's a better question. Build any building you want, anything you want it for, $1 million.
Go crazy.
You get much different answers, and I don't think 3 people could do that for a town.
No, No, my suggestion is that those 3 people are the gatekeepers to get the professional help that we need.
Yeah.
And then they're the managers of that information to move forward.
And I mean, thinking down the line, because we've had groups before that have gotten together and said, gee, wouldn't it be nice if Granby did this, wouldn't it be nice if Granby did that, let's bring in 50 outside businesses into Granby. Right. After you got the ideas, you need the expertise to present and sell that to the town. And that's a very, very different expertise than figuring out what it is you want or you want to do.
That's exactly right.
And so, and all of that has got, and all that's gotta be part of the planning. You can't say, all right, we've got these 8 people, we're gonna put them together and expect that in a half a year for them to come give us a solution. Well, no, those 8 people, they've gotta hire some particularly great communications experts to figure out how to frame this.
So many people miss that, John.
Yeah,
So many
and
people miss that.
if you don't have the right groups for both of those things, you're doomed to failure before you even set out. So this has gotta be thought out, and so I like the idea that created that we don't really expect that we have the people in town that have all the expertise to do what's gonna be needed to be done to balance this.
I don't think we need it though. You can buy that.
as long as we tell people that they're expecting it.
Well, no, that's why this
Yeah.
gets reinforced, the more we talk about it, this gets reinforced. But, I don't expect the town to have all the expertise, no, absolutely not.
Yeah.
But I do know enough that you can get the expertise, but then as you point out critically, and I'll just throw a side note, I know Jim Trumke, he's our chair of planning. They've looked at different areas that they could start looking to bring commercial into town. Well, we're all familiar with the Amherst Street through Five Corners going down East Street. There's a ton of people in Amherst that use Granby as a corridor. So the town has looked at changing our zoning laws to accommodate that traffic. Not to say you're gonna get rid of residential property, but at least where there's open spaces along the Amherst Street, Pleasant/East Street
Mhm.
corridor, that we could start looking at those areas as commercial, so that if there was a tract of land large enough to do something, I'm not talking about going down the road of plumbing and sanitary and all that other fun stuff, which is required if you wanna do a professional building, but at least bring the option in that if somebody wanted to open up a business, a freestanding business, that's the corridor we've designated as that. And I don't know how it was presented to the town, but he told me they ran it up the flagpole, and because these are residential zone changing to, I don't know if it was a business zone, I don't know what classification they were calling it, but it was voted down, because the people that live on that corridor don't wanna see it turn to commercial. Well, you've already got the traffic people, the traffic are there, and it's probably only gonna continue getting busier. I mean, the reason Five Corners was renovated is because of that traffic. The lights are set up so that that line flows more than anybody else flows. So, and it's primarily Amherst and people on the other side of the mountain over there. But what you're pointing to is you've gotta be able to sell it. So.
How about if you eliminate item on the last paragraph? And then put some words in which explain why we think it's important to do something. In other words, the financial pressures that are to be able to continue or to expand services. And then dump or give it to the selectmen. They should form a committee to find some professionals who can go about solving the way to bring everybody together to come up with a plan. Maybe wording to the above, the items above. I don't know whether you wanna say are done humorously, but, or tongue in cheek or something of that nature, but they show the types of things that can be problems in the future, or are going to be problems in the future, or represent services that we pretty much feel we need.
I guess what I took this as is it's a flag, but it's a little bit of doing business as usual. We can see in the near, not too distant future, that's not going to work for paying our bills. There won't be enough cash. You don't have to get detailed, but we've gotta look at other options here.
But the financial requirements to continue to pay for what we now do and how we now do it will make that impossible to achieve.
Something like that, I think, yeah.
Something along
I
that.
think, I mean,
That's better than I could come up with.
We recommend the select board, put together citizens and hired professionals with appropriate skills to then determine what the town wants to do, how much money is available to do things, how to balance those two, something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. This 3 to 5 year lead time thing, I'll just take that out. This is something that's gotta be done now.
So there's no money in the budget though to hire professionals, right?
Well, they gotta figure it out, I mean,
They have to tell.
relatively speaking, those are cheap dollars,
If we put money in the budget, it probably wouldn't get spent anyways.
you know.
It's been there before and hasn't been taken advantage of.
Could I just add one thing, John, and this is just subtle, I notice things like this, I don't know how many of you do, but when they're respectfully submitted, for obvious reasons, yours and Bob's names are on top, but I'd like to put my name at the bottom and move the ladies up, just to blend that a little bit.
And this is alphabetical order. After Bob Meyer, this is alphabetical order.
Well,
The question, the only question I have for is if you wanna include a middle initial. That's the only.
That's the important
or
part.
you all have middle initial, well, but Mary Ann, you're two names, so. Mine's an A, if you wanna add it in, just put the A in.
Hey, okay,
I just-
Mary Ann is Mary.
Mary Ann's already got two names, so.
Is Mary Ann Munger appropriate, or is it
Yeah.
another initial in there someplace?
No, there's no other initial, that's
Okay.
all there is.
One other point,
Some people- I went to school there.
Bob noted, that at the select board meeting on Monday, they talked about Mark's communication committee, isn't it? He's the one formed, or is he on the committee also?
Parks-
Communication
Parks and
committee?
I don't
Anyways,
know if he's on it, but
communication
it's his-
committee, and they're
it's his
suggesting
baby.
that they put together a handout for the town meeting that explains some things about the warrant.
Oh.
And, I'm gonna get in touch with Mark, and if they're gonna do that, that would be the place that we could ask, could we put in one paragraph that explains what free cash is, and one paragraph that explains what
I would like
what
to see that.
stabilization funds are, and what, so that, that would be available, so that if somebody wants that, we don't have to put it in our own material, then it could go with part of the general stuff.
That's a
that we should
handout that
know
you
for the
get
town
when you
meeting.
walk in, right, people, you're gonna,
Yeah.
I would like that, I would.
So is that all right with everybody? If we-
Yeah, that's what we were talking about
Instead of developing
yesterday.
something ourselves?
Yeah. Yeah, we can do
Okay.
it.
Well, we talked about free cash and stabilization funds.
Those are the two
Those are the two things I think.
main. And it's important because those are the streams of revenue
Mhm.
that are dwindling. And we don't see, because of the way our budgets are running, we don't see them being reestablished, rebuilt, I mean.
Okay, so everybody send me by email,
Yep.
a copy electronically, so I can move stuff around. I'll try to put it all together and I'll ask about this. I've got a meeting set up for Tuesday and Thursday. I'll send, Kathy sent me the PDFs, I didn't send them around yet.
Okay.
They're at 6:30 on Tuesday, and Thursday, and
Yep.
they're in
They're
here.
in this building.
I think they're in here, but I
Okay.
haven't had a chance to really look at that yet, but I'll send it around to everybody. And, does that sound like our plan for going forward?
Yep.
Okay.
So
Any-
we
anything
already
else?
set up Tuesday and Thursday, is that?
Yeah, Tuesday.
No, we just said it tonight.
They're
Tonight.
set up, I don't have
Set up.
I don't have the details, but Tuesday and Thursday is
So
6.
tonight's the first time you said that also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, so next Tuesday, yeah, and Thursday.
it's the fifth and the seventh.
I'm not doing Wednesday, because Wednesday is the meet the candidates thing.
Right, okay, I didn't have the seventh, so I'll add that.
All right, is there any other business before us today? If not, then I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
I'll second.
Aye. Thank you very much.